Hello. Dean, can we go down on the spots, please? No? Cool. I don't want to darken my face any more than I have to. We good? All right, cool. Hello. So we're starting a new series this week called The Big Question. Big question, big question. We have a lot of those. We have a lot of big questions. Anyone know what this big question possibly could be? Any guess? Any big question guesses? Yes. It's the first answer that popped in my head. I'm sorry. sorry. Whew. Don't know what happened. It was blinding. Any other big questions? Any big questions? Who am I? Close. I don't know. I can't really see. No, but life, we have a lot of big questions. We never really outgrow questions. It's kind of just the foundations of life. You kind of ask questions when you need to know. Life has many different big questions, like, will you marry me? But it has very simple questions, like, are we there yet? Do we have food yet? When's DoorDash getting here? Did you see that TikTok? Any of those can be a simple question that we can answer and give answers to. But we're wired as humans to look for answers. It's kind of our DNA. It's in our nature that throughout history we've looked for answers. We've tried to solve life's unsolvable riddles. We've looked to figure out the things that a human can't figure out. It's kind of just what we've been brought up with in evolution and through time. We've looked for those unsolvable answers. So we may wonder things like, why am I here? Who am I? What does this all mean for me? These are some of life's biggest questions that I feel like I've had many thoughts of that in my life, and I'm sure you guys have before, where you're kind of in a rut or a little ditch in life, you're kind of in a hole, and you're kind of just sitting asking yourself why, what's going on here, how can I do anything to change this? For the next few weeks, we're going to spend time talking about these whys and these big questions and trying to figure out what they mean for us and what we can do moving forward to kind of get some of these answers. So to start off, I'm going to ask a churchy question to you guys. Yeah, churchy question. What does it mean to follow Jesus? Could be any answer. What does it mean? Yeah. Perfect. Yes. Anyone else have any other examples? And you can blurt it out because I am blind up here. All right. So I went on Google, right, and looked up this question. And so what does it mean to follow Jesus today? Eventually, the disciples learned that they weren't just following a rabbi. Jesus was the promised Messiah. The Lord had come to teach them about himself, and they were going to help establish his kingdom. If we want to follow Jesus too, we have to recognize him as more than a great teacher. Yeah, this is straight off of Google. It's like the first thing that came off. Yeah, it's a great Google. But the point is that I'm trying to make here is that, like she just said, like we have here, there's many different answers to the same question. There's many different answers to life's many questions. So when there are multiple questions and there are multiple answers to the questions, it can be a little confusing. It's hard to wrap your mind around things that are confusing. That's why they're confusing. And so when you sit there and you ponder it and you question what's going on, sometimes that leads to more questions than answers. So we're going to look at a book from the New Testament called Matthew. Quick question, who wrote Matthew? Matthew? Great answers. Yes, 20 pointless points. So we're going to look at that story. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." At once, they left their nets and followed him. Matthew 4:18 through 20. So if you try to get this image in your head, they're fishermen. So back in their day, they're used to fishing day in, day out, going on the water, going in the sea, and casting their nets in to catch dinner, to catch food to sell, catch anything they really can to survive back in these days. And believe it or not, which you probably believe it because you've probably heard the story, but Andrew and Peter agreed to go with Jesus. They didn't really have much to go off of, but they still said, yeah. So when they got out of the boat to follow Jesus, they left behind their fishing nets, they left behind their careers, they left behind their identities, and they left their communities to Jesus, who just asked them to follow him. And I'd like to imagine that they were in this community. Jesus had been around for a little bit, so he had a little bit of a reputation. So it's not like it's just some stranger walking up and saying, "Hey, let's go." But they kind of knew what Jesus was going for, what his standards were, what he was doing in the community. But they didn't really question it as much as most of us would today. They just kind of just said yes. So he invited them to go with him where we went so they could be more like him. He invited them to go with him where he went so they could be more like him. So when they go out and they're fishing, some guy, Jesus, invites them, but all he says was, "Follow me." So they have to have the questions wrapping around their mind of, well, where are we going? Like, how long are we going to be? Is this a day trip? Is this a 2-day trip? Like, what's going on? But they said yes. And so even though Jesus just says, "Follow me," there's more behind the question than just "follow me." So he's telling them to follow him, but there's meaning, there's backing, there's reasons why he's asking them to do that. You see, because Jesus, he had a life in mind for them that was bigger than what they were living. So their day in, day out schedule of going out on the boat, fishing, he had something bigger in mind for them. And they kind of just said yes. So Jesus had more in mind for their lives in the area that mattered most. So rather than being on the boat, he wanted to target certain areas of their life. So this goes on, and you skip ahead a few years, and they're following this, and they're going with him, and they're going over the region. This is near the beginning of the New Testament, which is kind of like the bulk of where the disciples come in. So during these times that they're following Jesus, they would see many things happen. One, they would see Jesus walk on water. They would see him, 2, heal the sick. 3, raise people from the dead. They would 4, see him forgive sins. And 5, come back from the dead. So that's a lot to see from a guy coming up a few years ago saying, "Follow me," on the boat. So more of the story right there is that he didn't say that they were going to do that. He just said, "Follow me." They had plenty of questions to do, but they didn't question what Jesus had in mind for them. And their lives could have been very simple if they just stayed on the boat. They could have just cast their nets out day in, day out, but Jesus had more in mind. So life didn't get easier for the disciples just because they followed Jesus, just because they believed in him. It didn't get easier. Spoiler alert, life does not get easier. I know I'm not that much older than you guys, but it gets maybe even harder outside of high school, depending on who you ask. It gets a lot different. You have to experience new things in life. And I'm not saying that it's going to beat you up. I'm just going to say it can take a toll if you don't figure out what to do soon enough. But one thing that does help is that they were walking with the Messiah. They were walking with the Lord, and that he was there to step by step take them through all of these miracles and things. So when you really understand who Jesus is, it really does change everything. And so they didn't really know who Jesus was. They heard of him, but they didn't believe in him as much as they do after the coming years. So for it to change everything, you have to go through a change of mindset. And so first thing you want to do is start reimagining what following Jesus looks like. And so at the beginning, I asked, what does following Jesus really look like to you? And that could mean coming to church every Sunday. That could mean saying grace before you eat. That could say going to Bible study, making sure you're hanging out with the right people, the right aura that you get from being in these certain crowds. That could be what following Jesus is for you. But there's many different answers to the same question, like we went over before. And so you want to start reimagining what following Jesus looks like, not just for everyone, but for you solely in your life. So secondly, you want to take a step. And that's probably one of the hardest things. See, when people go parachuting, they go bungee jumping, the hardest part of it is just stepping off and taking that first step into that relationship with Jesus and taking that first step off the plane. Because you may not know what's going to happen, but you have to have the faith, the courage, the belief that you will be able to make it past that first step. And so the hardest thing to do is to take the first step in your relationship. And I'm sure many of you already have taken the first step and have experienced the hardship that comes by. And that's when you want to reimagine what it means to follow Jesus in your life and how that can change through. Because Peter and Andrew, I'm guessing their belief in following Jesus changed from stepping off the boat to watching him be arrested, murdered, killed, put into a grave, and come back to life. I feel like that can change how someone pictures someone. So you want to think about these three questions. One, who am I? So kind of like Sarah said earlier, of the big questions of who am I? What does it mean to you to be the person you want to be? 2, where do I fit in? And 3, can I make a difference? So these are some pretty massive questions, and they're not going to take a day, they're not going to take an hour, they're not going to take a week to answer. These are thoughts that you're going to have to reimagine in your head. You have to take the initial step to start thinking about this process and trying to figure out what it really means to you to follow Jesus. You have to realize that Jesus had more in his mind for the areas that matter most. So Jesus isn't thinking about where you are in the present. He's thinking about what matters to you in the long run. He didn't stop them on the boat because they were on the boat. He knew what they were sent out to do, and he called them to come follow him. And so many of these answers and questions that we have look very different. But one thing that I do want to mention is that, Dean, can you go back to the slide where he asks them? Yeah. At once they left, go back one. Come follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. So he said, come follow me. That is one of the simplest things you possibly can say with being so vague. And so he has all of this meaning behind come follow me. He knows what they're going to do in their future. They know the bigger, deeper things that they have in store for their life, but he doesn't say that. He just says, come follow me. And so many of this is very crucial. But one thing he doesn't say after saying, and I will send you out to fish for people, the one thing he doesn't say is, hey, can you actually change your dirty, stinky fishing outfit and then follow me? Hey, can you just not hang out with each other before you follow me? Follow me separately. He doesn't say, hey, change who you are to follow me. He says, come follow me. He doesn't care what you do because you're made perfectly in his image. He doesn't care what other people think of you because you're made perfectly in his image. You are made the perfect way that he intended you for, and he's going to use that to go deeper. So you have to reimagine what following Christ is. If it's coming to church, if it's going deeper in your thoughts, if it's figuring out what the meaning of life is, you have to figure that out. Take the step, reimagine things. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in the coming weeks, but this is just to kind of open up the door for you guys to start really thinking about it and figuring out what life's biggest questions are and how you can reimagine your walk with Christ and what that truly means, and how following Jesus can truly, truly, truly change the impact of your life. And Sarah and I are here. We've had some pretty major life experiences and life changes that we are more than happy to come talk to you guys about if you are interested. And the door is always open, because we've had some pretty crazy times in our life that we've had to push through. And I'm sure the 90 Blantons that are in the room kind of know her side. But for me, I've had a lot of things, and I'm always an open book. So life doesn't get easier, but God has a deeper meaning for you. He has boundaries that he wants to push you to. You have to reimagine what you think is following Jesus and take that first step. So I'm going to pray us out, and then we're going to do worship, and we'll go watch some football, I think, because I'm doing that. I'm going to watch some football. All right, let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you that we could all be here today to learn a little bit about you, that we can reimagine what it means to follow you, that it means sometimes that we don't have all of the answers, but we are walking with a faith, that our relationship with you is built on faith, and not always being able to see you or know where you're going, but to believe that you have a deeper belief and you have a deeper meaning behind the walls that we are going to push, and that the relationships that we build through our times being fishers of men, that the relationships and the minds and lives that we hope to change throughout our time, that we can take that first step to reimagine what it is to follow you. I pray for a week of happiness for our students, that school is above average, because we all know that it can be below average at some points. I pray for safe travels here home, and that we pray for a happy, healthy week. And in your name we pray, amen.